Okay, so this is our learning outcomes according to the syllabus. Okay, so describing the logical design, because we almost complete the logical design and the architecture involving designing reconstruction, write elementary process description in the pseudocode, specifies table and the record specification. So these are the contents that we are going to discuss, especially here. Look at these ones, how the logical design is converting into the database design. You got it? So you know about the ER diagram. The next level is the ER diagram. So we almost completed data flow diagram. And here you can see the logical data flow modeling. What do you mean by the logical data flow modeling? So DF from data flow modeling, I already explained the data flow modeling can be divided into two parts. Number one, data flow diagram, and the EPD, elementary process diagram. Okay. So in here, further we can decompose into the physical design and the logical design. Okay. So the physical means it's an actual data where we use, what are the areas, where to store, and so on. So we will discuss further. And the logical is just what we had the previous classes, what we had discussed, that analysis, data, and so on. So. And then we are going to converting the items into the data dictionary and the logical schema. So the schema that we are going to use it for the ER diagram. Okay, fine. So look at this one, the logical data modeling, LDM, is system data processed by the processor identified in the DFD. So we already done the process part. Okay, you know, the data process is the external agent, external element, as well as the data store. So identify the model system data processed by the process identified in DFM. It consists of a diagram called logical data structure and associated textual description. Logical data structure we call as a data flow diagram. Is it clear? So textual data description means, what do you call that? Elementary process description. Please remember this word, because you familiar with the term called data flow diagram. But in another term, the contents are not it's exactly available in the syllabus description. Huh? So because I don't want to get some information from the degree and external masters and all, because I just exactly extract the information from your exact syllabus. Why? Because they use the same term. Maybe in your examination questions, past paper questions, MCQ part, they would ask like this term: logical data structure, textual description. Is there anything available in your notes? Just first check that part. It's not there. It's there. So please underline the term called logical data structure and write down the called data flow diagram. That is called DFD, what we have done. Okay, maybe you can underline logical data structure, because uh, the syllabus wise and the different terms they use, but this is exact same informations in the terms that they have used in the syllabus. So please remember this word. If any other terms they say write down the data structure symbols, diagrams. Don't confuse data structure. Logical data structure means what? That is a data flow diagram. And the associated textual description means what? EPD, elementary process description. Is this clear? Please note that one also, underline that. That is called elementary process descriptions. I hope online users can hear my voice and this for the case and okay. Now look at this one, that's LDS, which means data flow diagram illustrates how data interrelated to each other and shows how business rules apply on systems data. Is this clear? The exact the definition of the data flow diagram and what is a data flow diagram means the exactly same term. And the second one, the logical data modeling is the process of creating a conceptual representation of data and its relationship. Okay, so it's very simple term, relationships. Without regard to the physical implementation details, it focuses on defending the structure of data in a system as well as the relationship between the different data entities. Logical data models are typically expressed using a ER diagram or unified modeling language class diagram. Okay, don't worry about the class diagram because according to the advanced level, there's no such a class diagram, and that is under the degree level. Okay, so if you are following software engineering, software development, BSc in software development, computer science, maybe even if you follow the computer network diagram and so on, so these are fundamental designing tools that is available in all of the major degree programs related to the computer science. Okay, so these are the contents that we are using because just you should. What I'm trying to explain here in this small thing, logical data modeling is what we have done, the data flow diagram. Now it is the next step is the ER diagram. Is it clear? Data flow diagram முடிச்சு அது அதோட நிக்கிறது இல்ல அந்த டிசைனிங்ல வச்சு we already identify the data store. So what is a data store? That's a database. You understand? So we already identify the database, the data stores. That is called table. You understand? For an example, you say that the student name file means that is a student database. So the fees table, fees file means that is a fees database. You understand? Try to understand that one. Okay. Fine. Now we understood the content. Okay. You don't need all the matter, just only the details. LDM 2. Okay. LDM we can categorize into two: logical data structure and the textual descriptions. So the same term we can use it. Data modeling, data flow modeling. Data flow modeling divided into two. Data flow diagram, EPD, the same term but in a different context. Is this clear? Okay. Now this part is finished. Because this is completely theory, because I want to point out the importance of that slide and the context. Huh? If you have a question, please ask me. Even if you have a problem with my terms and any other technical jargon words, please ask me. Even I'll explain the familiar சொல்றேன் இத clear அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்ட் பண்ணு. So you don't write down explain the detail like a business type things and any other advanced level Tamil Sinhala IC you have to give the huge details, especially business studies economics you have to write down explain means the paragraph half of the page. So even if you explain the correct answers within a 2 or 3 words or 2 or 3 sentence, no marks. But in this advanced level, ICT, they are only checking they are only measuring, monitoring, or your contents. You just describe LDS. What is LDS? Two part data flow diagram and EPD. That is enough. Okay. So they will give a marks. Explain maybe what is LDS, logical data structure. That is called data flow diagram. So we illustrate the data flow passing through the system. You understand? It is enough. Okay. So the simple term in a one single sentence is enough. Is that clear? Fine. First part is finished. Then second one, entities. You understood the entities. And the second one, relationship. So entities, we know that the collection of logical associations must not get confused. External entities, DFM, property of an entity is called attributes. Name should be reflect the type. Because what we are going to discuss, actually these are the contents that we are going to discuss in the ER diagram. You understand? You know the ER diagram, the main part is entity and the relationship. We will discuss in the coming Tuesday, okay? So, and we will discuss further about that. We will discuss about what is a relationship and what are the types of relationships and so on so. But in here, what I'm trying to say here, once we finish the completion of, once we complete a data flow diagram, then the next step is what? ER diagram. You understand? Fine. And relationship, how entities related to each other. Because in data flow diagram, there is no relationship. Student table is somewhere else. Fees table is somewhere else. And we know only the data are transferring in between. And what are the process are identifying and sharing the items in the one classes and through the teacher and so on so. Is this clear? Fine. And now, degree of relationships. We will discuss about the degree of relationship in the data flow diagram. ER diagram. So there is a concept of one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many. Tuesday we will discuss further about that. 3:30 to 7:30. I hope you shall come on that. Optionality of a relationship. So we will discuss about the EER diagram also. Extended entity relationship diagram. Okay. So these are the contents that we are going to discuss. So an entity matrix. Okay. So that helps to identify the relationship among entities. Because we know the entities, customer, supplier, and cashier, internal entities over cashier, the vendor, so on so. Okay. Now we already we have found that those term, and thereafter what are the relationship in between the two different entities. So there is a major main subject. And association between each pair of entities are checked for once, does not provide the full description of a relationship. So we will discuss about that one. But here now you all understood the entity matrix. Is that clear? Just cross check that entity matrix means helps to identify the relationship among entities. Please underline that. So now, so look at this one. Logical data flow modeling of the proposed systems starts from elementary process. Okay. So up to now we discussed about the data flow modeling. The data flow modeling we considered as a logical DFM. ER diagram we mentioned we consider like a physical. It's not a physical because there is also two different parts. So ER diagram physical and the context logical. Okay. So look at this one. The start from elementary process. You know EPED. So in the EPED we are finding that we are writing the pseudo-code and there's the relationship and the steps of that, who is going to in charge and what are the privileges and all. And as location of a process only indicates a physical constraint, removes it from all process. The person who actually did the process in a physical DFM now feeds into input to the corresponding process in the logical DFM, removes any purely human activities and replaces it with the external entities. Okay, so we done that last time because not a solid line, the dashed line that is directly communicate with the human activities now. So if there is any human activities, we destroy, we just avoid those uh, item and we are replacing with the system. Is that clear? So that is a concept of the logical DFM is proposed system. Now we are completely converting that our manual details and we are going to convert into the logic, sorry, the system. Okay. So reconstruction the hierarchy by regrouping logical process based on their functionalities, describe the functionalities of elementary process in pseudocode and write EPD, elementary process description. Is this clear? So fine. This is not important, but just to identify. Okay. Now look at this one. This is called physical design of database. So what is the relationship with the logical schema and the data flow diagram? Relational schema means we are going to develop ER diagram. So as I mentioned, ER diagram, DFD, any of the degree levels, you will learn about the user the data flow diagram, ER diagram, and what do you call the next one? Use case diagram, activity diagram, sequencing diagram. There are so many diagrams are there. Okay, so before you design, develop a real project, you must have some kind of a designing part, analysis and the designing part. So these are the tools. Now look at this one, the logical design, you know, entity. Okay, so in this logical schema, we use the term called entity, but in the table, the relational schema, which means the ER diagram, we are going to use the term of table. The first point. Attribute, we are going to use the term called field. An instance of entity, we are going to use record of the table. Unique attributes called primary key. You understand? So it's the gradually it's turning into the ER diagram. Now you can easily understand that. Okay. So in ER diagram, we are going to deal. ER means what? Entity relationship diagram. Data flow diagram means data flow diagram. We are going to show the data flows. ER diagram means what are the relationship in between the data element, entities. Is that clear? So the entity, we say that external entity. In the logical schema also we use the entity. So that is what you call as a table. Student is entity. We are going to convert it as a student table. Customer, we are going to convert it into the customer table. You understand? And examiner, vendor, supplier table. Clear? We are going to identify the fields, records, and all in the ER diagram, not in the data flow diagram. Is that clear? Okay. Fine. So, is it available? You can just copy it. Okay. So, this is called mapping logical schema to the relational schema. So, in your questions paper, they would ask like the same term. So, please underline that, especially logical schema to relational schema. So, in MCQs, or maybe part 2. Any questions? No questions, huh? Now, because actually in a chapter 8 means main 3 parts. Number 1, ER diagram, SQL, normalization. You understand? ER diagram, SQL, normalization. What is the ER diagram? ER diagram means identify the entities. That is called table. Identify the relationship, primary key, foreign key, and composite key. These are the concepts. And we are going to identify the attributes. And then once you complete the ER diagram, only we can develop a SQL. SQL is a programming language. And we are going to write down the select all and create database, create table, and set foreign key, so on so. Okay, we will discuss further, but I'm just quickly point out the next one. Before we develop a database, which means SQL, we should do the normalization part. Here, you can see in the chapter 7 itself, we have the term called normalizing all the relationship in the relational schema to third normal form. I hope you remember the 3NN. Have you learned first normalization, second normalization, third normalization? Yes or no? You did know. You did, but you can't remember. Okay, no issues. We will discuss further. So this is also one of the main questions. So in the ER diagram questions, so I think the majority is out of 15, maybe they can take it as A part or B part. Which means if it is A, then 10 out of 10. Okay. So, or 15. So around 5 to 7 marks out of 15 for the ER diagram. For the SQL, around 2 to 4 marks for the SQL, and the remaining 2 to 4 marks for the normalization. Is it clear? That's how they usually allocate the marking scheme in the ER diagram. But still, you can understand that concept. Okay, fine. Now because once you complete the data flow diagram, so we have we know that what is going on. So how the data are going through the system and to reaching the data store. And who is going to take over the data from these files. And every details is very clearly you can monitor in the data flow diagram. Data flow diagram user yaru source, yaru sender and the receiver. Okay, who is going to create the data? Okay, so then once you create the data, it is converting into the system, and the system is going to store maybe the manually or systematically. So then the second one, once you EPD, elementary process means that is the last level of the data flow diagram. So according to advanced level, you have a 0 level, which means a context level diagram, and the second first level diagram. Okay, in between there is a diagram called documentary. Okay, without a data store, the first level we call as a documentary level. Is that clear? Okay. Now, once you identify all the records in the EPD level, the final stage, we have enough idea about the data sharing concept. And then simply, we must analyze those items and we must complete converting it to the third normalization concept. Is this clear? Okay. Now, all the relations must relation schema to third normal form and tabulates a table's description, specification, and a record specification for each relationship in the normalized relational schema. Okay, as I mentioned, ER diagram, chapter 8, the second portion, the same 8, SQL, the same chapter 8, there is a concept of normalization. So in this data flow diagram, we must convert all the information into the third normal form. Then only we can apply it to the ER diagram, and then only we can develop the SQL. Okay, once you develop the SQL, you can't normalization. Is it clear? Fine, we will discuss further. Provide physical design for the construction of the database. Is it clear? Please underline that. Normalizing all the relationship in relation schema to third normal form. Understood? I know these are the technical, maybe jargon words. Based language is very simple, because I'm connecting the data flow to ER diagram ke endha sambandham. Idukku chapter 7 8 munda padikkum. Chapter 7 mudikka ER diagram start pannenge. Karika 8 post padikine idhu mudija idhukku full complete pannudhu. Okay. You just write down only this one. Normalizing all the relationships in relational schema to 300. So under the table. table mapping. So maybe you can take a snapshot. Don't worry, you don't want to copy all of them. இந்த வேர்ட் மட்டும் தான் தேவை. இது இத செஞ்சா நாங்க பிசிக்கல் டிசைனுக்கு வந்துட்டோம். ஓ okay, understood. Please go through the mapping table. Huh? So I have seen in your, I think maybe in MCQ or maybe in the part A itself, they can ask that one. So entity, this one is underlined. Second one is a field, and this side is a underline. So you have to fill that one. Okay, the next one is a data dictionary, because this is not important, but just to identify the terms what we are going to discuss. Anyway, we will discuss about the normalization in the coming chapter, chapter 8. Data dictionary. So the data dictionary. So this is called metadata. Okay. I hope you have experience with the Access, Microsoft Access. So in the Microsoft Access, this is table. So before you create a table, you must create the details look like this. Okay. Employee ID int, maybe this is a description. So you don't want to write down this one. Do you remember this one? Shall I show the MS Access? Microsoft Access? Do you remember that one? Microsoft Access in O level? O level Access செஞ்சு பாத்தீங்களா? Open பண்ணியாது பாத்தீங்களா? Huh? Microsoft Access. In a Microsoft Access, once you create, there is a blank. Okay, you don't have any other details. Excel, there is a sheet. Word, there is a page or document. But in Access, there is a blank. So in that blank, you in the left side corner, there is a new click, and you have to create a table. Once you create the table, because before you create a table, you must save it as a database. Is it clear? Do you remember that one? Shall I show that one? Huh? Okay, look at this. So it is easier for you if you know the access. Then what is you can easily understand the this one, what you call Microsoft Access. Okay, look at this. You know this is excess. I don't want to explain about the excess. Give me a minute. Okay, look at this one. In this area, first of all, you know the blank desktop database. Click the blank desktop database, and then because in your Word you don't want to save the name. Am I correct? So after finishing all the activities, then you can save. Excel, no need to save. First, you do whatever you want. You can do that one, and once you finish it, you can save it. But in because but the standardized is what you must save it before whatever you changes or whatever you are going to changes anything. You must save it before, because if anything's happened, then everything will be vanished. No, nothing would still. So, but in here, you can't do anything else without saving, because this is a call frame. Because now we are going to discuss in the ER diagram, no problem in SQL. So first you must create a database. Database இருந்தால் தான் டேபிளே வரும். ஃபவுண்டேஷன் இருந்தால் தான் ரூம் டெவலப் பண்ணும். அது மாதிரி அல்மாரி இல்லாம கபர்ட் அதுல ஸ்பேசஸ் வரையில. அப்ப அந்த ஸ்பேசஸ்க்கு தான் சொல்றேன் டேபிள். அப்ப சொல்லுவீங்க அந்த ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஸ்பேஸ் நானாட ஸ்பேஸ், அது என்ன கீழே ரெண்டாவது தம்பி. அப்படி அல்மாரியில யூஸ்வல் அப்படித்தான் டிவைட் பண்ணி அது மாதிரி ஜஸ்ட் அல்மாரிக்கு ஒண்ணுமே. அதுதான் டேட்டா பேஸ், சிம்பிள் அனாலஜி. So the same way, foundation. Without a foundation, you can't build the houses, rooms and all. So the foundation means this is a database. Now you must save the database. I just simply save database. I don't want to give any other name. Okay, once you open, because you can see this is a table look like this. This is also look like a Excel, because I hope you can see the grid. Okay, no problem. Maybe I think zoom பண்ணேனா இல்ல grid. So ID there are something, but this is not the real one. First of all, you must go to the view part and do the designing view. Once you click the designing view, you must save the table, and now you can see this is the area what we are going to discuss. This is called data dictionary. Okay, here this is called ID. No, look at this one. Automatically the primary key activated. Okay, it is automatically assigned by the system access. Without ID you can't create a table. Okay, the second one, here you can select the data type. In Excel there is no compulsory, but it is automatically detected as a general. Have you noticed that one? So then once you change that column into the date, you can't type anything. Once you type it, automatically it will be converted as a, even if you type the number, then it will automatically convert to the date. Have you noticed that one? Excel, then I'm talking about the Excel. But in here, without selecting any other data type, you can't go beyond. Is that clear? So then you must select the auto number for the ID, because auto number means 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't want to assign. Automatically it will be create the number. The second one, the descriptions, it's not optional, it's not compulsory. Maybe I can say this is my primary key. Okay. So the second one, student name. Here in this one, the student name maybe what kind of a type, long text or a short text. Short text is a number, currency, so on so. Then maybe even you can assign the number even, that size. We will discuss further in the SQL. Okay, before you send this SQL, you must give a byte also. The 255, there's a thing we will discuss. And here, is it a recorded? Is there any rules and all the validation texts are there? I don't assign anything. And here, name. And the second one, address. Okay, either contact number, let's say contact number. Okay. So the contact, oh, sorry. Okay. Contact number, I can give a number. Is this clear? Okay, now finish. I just file data sheet view. Yes, you must save the table. Yes. Okay, you can see here the contact number. I can't type any other letters here. The value entered does not match. You understand? Then, so it won't allow you to do anything else. And you can go to the create. The create, you can create a form. Here, simple form. So simply click next, next, next. You can create that one. So there is a different part. I'm not going to explain that excess. But now you understood the concept of the data dictionary. What is the meaning of data dictionary? Because there is a definition of your all of the data. What is a dictionary? So if any words, if you do not know about any words, I quickly say, please go to the dictionary. So because that is called definition of that term. So the entire database, depending on the data, what is the data, what student name, what kind of a data type, what is the value, what is the level, the quantity, bytes, everything is defined, should define. Is that clear? Fine. Now let's move to the presentation. Now look at this one here. This is the same term what I explained. Once you saved, table looks like similar like that. So this is the column employee ID in. This is called primary key. Maybe here gender. Star one. Star one means there is only a character one. M, F, M means male, F means female. Employment start date. Department ID. Here the reference. That is called foreign key. So these are the fundamental foundation, the basic idea about the chapter 8. Okay, now we almost cover the 7.7. That is called proposed project. We collect all the data flow diagram, and now we are going to convert the data flow diagram into the real world project. Is that clear? So EPD, the pseudo-code is going to convert into the programming, maybe a Python or a PHP. Okay. So ER diagram is converting into the SQL. Is that clear? So this is a way. Okay. Now develops and test the proposed system. Now we almost analyze, and there are so many waves are there. That is developing, and now before you develop, you must test. So system development life cycle means it's an entire story about that one. No? Your full entire story about the system development life cycle. You are analyzing, you are creating the project from the customer, and you are analyzing and the designing and the developing by using the programming language according to the advanced level. HTML, so on, so on. So HTML is not a programming language. There is a markup language. Programming is PHP. And there is a Python also. And there is a ER diagram. There is also designing and the development, SQL. SQL is a programming language. Is that clear? Once we complete the program, now we are going to test. How are you going to test? Develop and testing part. In this part, we are going to discuss about the develop. You understand? Okay. Next one. Here, these are the contents that we are going to discuss. Programming development, database development, testing, test cases, white box testing, black box testing, unit testing, integration testing, system testing, acceptance testing. You can see there are so many questions asking what is a white box testing, because the pure definition, usually in advanced level there is no definition. Okay, in all level maybe there would be a question like what is the system, maybe you could see that, but now there is no what is the system, there is no questions like that. But the white box testing and the black box testings are very new for us. Okay, so therefore we must know what it is. So if you know thoroughly that message, the concept, then simply you can write down any of the final design. Is that clear? Okay. Now the second one, okay, now that is a concept of that. Okay, this is called program development. So the programming development, you know, analyzing, identifies the need, conduct learning analysis, determine program outcomes, define the programming values, and designing, developing, implement, evaluations. And this is the development part. In the development, when you developing programming, there is also a cycle. So you should follow that, the understanding the program, conceptualization, the designing concept, education, implement, and evaluations. Is that clear? So let's assume that there is a program, means you can't just type and develop that. So there are some standard. So what are the standards are there? You must follow that one. Okay. So there is a concept of architecture level. There are some programming, what do you call, standards are there. You understand? You must follow that one. So we will discuss further about the object-oriented program, the structured program, procedural program, and now the case, the engineering type, computerized architecture engineering. So likewise, there are so many steps. Even if it is a AI, there are some kind of a standards. We must follow that. Okay. Any questions? No. Yes. Don't worry. You don't write it down. Huh? So we will discuss the programming separately. So this is just to explain. Okay. Now the test cases. Once you develop the program, you know, each and every time I usually prefer the term called validation and the verification. So the validation and the verification is one of the compulsory subjects term in the entire software industry. Okay, even AI. So there's a huge question tag ongoing that during these days, the vibe coding, whether it's vibe coding is can be a product launch, because even without knowing any other program, just they are going to start the vibe coding and they start and end up with the failure, because there are so many 99% of projects are failed during these last 2 years, because the last year only the term we used vibe coding last year. So the father of vibe code is also introduced that he successfully achieved the first year, because he's a senior program. If you do not know about the program, you can't start the vibe code even. So when you are hi AI, give me the program, then all the details are there. You just come copy and paste. You don't know what is a program language, anything. Even you don't know how to test it. Then fail. Okay. This testing is compulsory. What are the test cases are there? Software testing techniques. We can divide it into two different parts. Number one, software testing techniques. Number two, software testing type. Is this clear? Fine, I'll explain about that. First, what is the test cases? Test cases is a set of action executed to verify a particular feature or functionality of a software application. Is that clear? So maybe we are going to test the source code, or maybe we are going to test the function, or maybe we are going to test the output. According to the level of that, we are going to categorize this. I'll explain that. So maybe test cases are documented by the quality assurance team while the software development is going on. Is that clear? So that is a part of QS, quality assurance team. Okay. So in this part, you can see software developer, because you have the term called software developer. But in software engineering, don't worry about, there is no only the isolated part, software engineering or software developer. In between, there are so many program levels are there. So many job descriptions are there. So you call as a junior architect, senior architect. The architect means there is a different role, not the developing part. Software designer is a separate one. Software analyzer is a separate one. Software testing is a separate part. And developing. And engineering. In the engineering also there are so many different levels are there. The senior level and the junior level. The senior level, there is called re-engineering process. They're clear. So these are the number of job roles available in the job market. You understand? So you must know about that part. Then only you can understand the software engineering, software development process. Even the database design is also different part. Database developer is a different part. Okay. Even if you are a full stack developer, the analyzing is a different part. Designing is a different part. Testing is a different person. Okay. You can see that you can search about the full stack developer. They will assign that only the developing, front-end development, back-end development. That is not relevant to the testing part. Is that clear? So this is the concept of the real world job description, the entrepreneurs, okay, enterprise concept. Is that clear? Fine. Now you understood? Okay. Now if anyone asks, because you know the ICT, do you know about the software architect? What is it? No, I never heard that. Architect. There is a construct architect. So you know engineering, architect, there is a two different level. No? Is it both the same person? Construction engineer is a different person. He is only signing. Actually, he is approving that project. Architect is the main role from top to bottom. In the architect, there is another term called QS. Quantity saving. There is a quality assurance team doing in that part. He is only checking assurance, testing quality, quantity saving. Okay, not only that, survey, there are so many levels. That clear. Malayalam, Tamil, Hindi பேசுறதே கொஞ்சம் பார்த்தா சரியான கவலை டேட்டா ஃப்ளோல ஃபுல் பிஸி ஆகி சொந்த கத்தி கத்தி பேண்ட தொண்ட தண்ணி தான் உனக்கு என்ன நான் சொல்லி நீங்க தான் ஒர்க் பண்ணீங்க இப்ப நீங்க பார்த்து கொண்டு இருக்கிறீங்க பொறுமை புரிஞ்சுறாரு. I know that this is a technical jargon words எனக்கு தெரிய எந்த அளவுக்கு விளங்குது. ஸோ இப்படி தானே நான் எந்த அளவுக்கு எக்ஸ்பிளைன் பண்றேன்னா கொஸ்டின்ஸ்ல எப்படி கேட்பாங்கன்னு தெரியும். அப்படிதானே இப்போ டேட்டா ஃப்ளோ டயக்ராம் வந்து மற்ற மாதிரி இல்லை, ஸ்பெசிஃபிக்கா இதுதான் கேட்பாங்கன்னு சொல்லிடுறேன். அவங்க எப்படி வேணுமென்றாலும் கேள்வி எடுக்கணும், ஆனா 5 MCQs தான் வரப்போகுது. ஓகே, ஸோ யூஸ்வலி ஐ கான்ட் எக்ஸாக்ட்லி, எனக்கும் எக்ஸாமினருக்கும் தேர் இஸ் நோ டைரக்ட் கனெக்ஷன். இதை போயிட்டு வெளியே சொல்லி கடைசியில எனக்கு கம்ப்ளைண்ட் பண்ற வைக்கணும். நான் 5 தான் யூஸ்வலா வந்துருக்கு. Part 2, there's a separate questions, A part, usually, data flow diagram. But here diagram is a separate part. Okay. So, this is the concept. So, in MCQs, they can ask any kind of questions, but most of the questions are relevant to the testing part. In the testing part, they can give a scope is there. there's some spaces to ask. இல்லாட்டி மற்றதெல்லாம் கேட்டு நீங்க வேண்டிய மாதிரி கொஸ்டினுக்கு ஆன்சர் பண்ணணும். Maybe it's just general note. Okay. So therefore, please try to understand software testing, because just before we learn, that is completely ER diagram note. So all of the topics are coming under the ER diagram. நான் எக்ஸ்பிளைன் பண்ணது இப்போ பிஃபோர் ஜஸ்ட் இப்போக்கு மட்டும் நான் எக்ஸ்பிளைன் பண்ணது எல்லாமே ER diagram-ஓட சம்பந்தப்பட்டது. அப்ப அவங்க கேள்வி கேட்பாங்க 7 8 மிக்ஸ் பண்ண. அப்ப அந்த கேள்வி வந்து அது இட் இஸ் ரிலவென்ட் டு தி chapter 8 not the chapter 7. But chapter 7 is also available those contexts. Is that clear? Okay. But this is exactly the term that we are designing, testing. So the testing, please underline that. This is a concept, technique and the testing. And the type of testing, is there any spaces are there? It's there. Okay. Software can be categorized into two. Software testing techniques, software testing types. You can write down. Software testing techniques. Software testing types. So it's the same sequence. So in here, software testing types, we can categorize into further, not in your syllabus, just for information. I can explain that basic software testing is what? Black box testing, white box testing, gray box. You don't worry about the gray, there's no gray in your syllabus. And the unit test, integration test, there it is called level of testing. And category of testing, GUI, graphical user interface. We are only focusing on the graphical user interface. And the functional wise. And we can categorize the testing part functionally. We are just taking the function, and in that function, maybe we can categorize unit test, integration test, system test, and so on. And for the security wise, and the spoke and sanity, regression, monkey, gorilla, usability, exploration, Educ, there are so many options. So don't worry, this is not a zoo. There are some concepts. Okay, don't worry about that. So therefore, volume testing, performance testing, price load testing, compatibility. Likewise, there are so many options are there. Once you develop the software, you can't just launch quickly because you must test. Because once a user use and he says that, sir, your software is not working, and he's prohibited. You understand? So he does not give any other the feedback and all. Okay. So therefore, you must do before they play. Okay. So therefore, you must have the clear definition, clear understanding about the testing. And then finally, you will launch your product into that one in according to their compatibility. Maybe you develop the software in the Windows, but their application, their environment is relevant to the Apple MacBook. Then might be there are some issues are happening. So then they will give some feedback. But in some cases, for an example, the one school's system is not supported for the different schools. Why? Because there are two different culture. Okay. For an example, then one of your schools, your schools, there is only a Tamil medium and a single medium, for an example. But in some different schools, single medium, Tamil medium, English medium is also there. Then that is not relevant to that. So now the developer must think in a different way. You understand? So he successfully launched the product because we felt a lot of issues with that, especially the software called what do you call Educ. In Zahira College, they launched a software called Educ. There is one of the successful product in the Oman international. But in Sri Lanka, when you are applying, there are so many troubles. Why? 1 to grade level, the academic calendar is different. Am I correct? January to December. That is also during the corona, that is totally talapapura. Am I correct? So it starts June sometimes, it suddenly starts April, and another year they say, no, February is finished, and suddenly they November is finished. So according to the ministers and the prime minister and all are deciding the academic calendar. So we don't have any other solid proof, solid foundation with that. And then what happened? Then they say that January to December. Okay. The problem is A-level. It's totally, it's like a other problem, you know. I thought monkey gorilla mind. A-level control okay. So then there is a different story. So, but there is no the different features available in that part. But in Oman, there is one of the successful product. Even you can find out Educ. But it's not a problem with the product. It is problem with the culture. Therefore, before you launch, you must understand what the reality. You understand? This is one of the real world examples. Okay. Likewise, don't think that, yeah, all of the product, there are some optional problems, there are some issues. Because each and every industry, Each and because that's why they are specializing in human HR management. Some software, some companies are there, they are only focused on the HR. We will discuss further about that. That is called vertical department. Horizontal we discuss and the vertical discuss. We will discuss. Okay, we will discuss one by one. Okay, now you understood that concept. So why we need the testing? Because there are so many testings are there, but according to the advancement, there is only limited. Okay, and what is a white box testing? Okay, the white box testing is called early stages. So during the early stages, takes internal implementation of the software to drive test cases to test the software and performed in the early stages of the testing. Early stages means, here I will show that one. Look at this one. This is my integration testing, unit testing. We already know about the unit testing, no? So line by line, the program by program, and user, from a user interface means only we focus on the user interface. Here, and integration means I develop the login and we check the login, username, password. Only we enter the username and submit whether it is working or not. Okay, and we only type the login password without a username and enter submit. No problem. And once you develop it, once you submit, what will happen next? So then we integrate the dashboard and your user login. And once you logged in successfully, then you must log out. Am I correct? Without log out, how are you going to stop your end your process? So then the third one is logout process. And once you log out, what is the next options? Even after the logout, you can just backward or forward, you can easily claim the document. For an example, once you finish your logout, your banking, and let's assume that the banking in you transfer some money in a banking account in a communication, for an example. Now you logged out and you maybe without you can't shut down, no? So you went out. Another person, he just clicked the back, then it will be return all of the previous statements, which means he logged into the system. That is also available. So that's why once you logged out, some software says no, I think system error something. Have you noticed like that? Even that is also one of the biggest. There is a sort of hacking is a vulnerable system. That clear. There is a problem. So the system problem. So therefore, that is also what we test. So integration, after integration, what are the testings are there? And the system testing. So once you finished all the testing part, that is called system testing. These three icons are under the white box testing. Now read this one, my dear students. Usually applied for testing relatively small program units. Analysis of the program code determines how many test cases are required to exercise all the internal components of the software, statements, branches, path, code, program, and user login, user logout adequately. Very simple term. Is it there? So then underline, I think it's there. Underline that early stages of testing, and within a bracket you can say unit test, integration test, system testing. But the system test can be two different, we will discuss further. But according to this level, system testing, unit test, integration test, and system test. Shall I reduce it? Good enough. Break பண்ண computer கேக்குது. Okay. Let's take a break, no? Okay, let's take a break. மிச்சம் எனக்கு தான் மெயினா break தேவை. Let's take a small break. இது விளைவிச்சுதானே மலையாள படம் பார்த்தோமா இல்லையே? Let's take a small break. I think system is issue. Start the session at around 7 o'clock. Huh? என்ன full மயான அமைதியிലേക്ക് ஒரு டியூஸ்டே வர கஷ்டமே. என்ன போகுது இப்ப அங்க செஷன்? என்ன பண்ண மெட்ரிக்ஸ் எல்லாம் வரணும். பேசிக் அது வந்து செகண்ட் செமஸ்டர் தேர்ட் செமஸ்டர் வந்து வந்துருக்கீங்க. அதுக்கு பேசிக் ஃபவுண்டேஷன் இங்க என்ன சொல்லுவாங்க? ஃபர்ஸ்ட் இயர்ல ஃபர்ஸ்ட் 3 மாசம் தெரியுமா சார்? இந்த பிராக்டிஸ் சொல்லி அந்த கொஞ்சம் கஷ்டமான அந்த கிராஃப் ஸ்டார்டிங் சொல்லி வருவாங்க. ஏரியா ப்ரிப்பேர் பண்ண நான் அதே தான் சொல்லி தரேன். அதெல்லாம் நீங்க படிச்சீங்க அங்க ஸ்கூல்ல படிக்கிறது அது 2% படிக்க போல ஸ்டார்ட் இவ்வளவு தானா? அது ஓ லெவல்ல இருக்கிறது ஏ லெவல்ல அது பிடிச்சுமா? ஏ லெவலுக்கு ஓ லெவலுக்கு அதுமா? உங்களோட ஃபவுண்டேஷன் டிகிரி ஃபர்ஸ்ட் இயர் செகண்ட் இயர் போக்குள்ள தான் மேத்ஸ் இருக்கு. மேத்ஸ் 1 மேத்ஸ் 2 எப்படியும் கம்ப்யூட்டர் சயின்ஸ்ல அப்படி வரும். உங்களோட ஃபவுண்டேஷன் இதோட முடியுது அப்படியா? Okay, give me a minute. Just okay. Now, what is your task is, this is a question also here, past paper question also. Write down the difference between white box testing versus black box testing. Write down. Maybe please write down your notebook, then you can copy whether it is correct or not. Okay, it's there. On the notes, that's point formula. The question on the final exam, question formula தான் எழுதுறது point formula. அதுல இப்படி paragraph அதை நீங்க point out பண்ண போறீங்க அந்த மெசேஜ்ல. Oh, okay. இல்ல அது ட்ரா பண்றது அதுலயே உங்களோட வேலை தான் நீங்க எந்த வேலை குறவு தான் அந்த கன்செப்டை ஃபர்ஸ்ட் இப்ப எலிமெண்ட் அது இதெல்லாம் இது பண்ணி ட்ரா பண்ணது இருந்தா நான் இனி ப்ராக்டிஸ் பண்ணத்தான் நீங்க ஓகே அப்படியே நார்மல் சினாரியோல அப்படியே பாஸ் பேப்பர் டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ணா உங்களுக்கு எந்த பேப்பரும் செய்யற மாதிரி இருக்கும் இப்ப டிஎஃப்டி எல்லாம் செய்யணும் தானே உங்களோட அந்த ஃபைனல் எக்ஸாம் பேப்பர்ஸ் செஞ்சு பாத்தீங்களா ராயல் காலேஜ் பேப்பர் உங்களோட ராயல் காலேஜ் ஸ்கூல் பேப்பர் செஞ்சு பாத்தீங்களா ஓ தேர்ட் டேர்ம்ல டிஎஃப்டி வந்துட்டானே உங்களோட பேப்பர் எனக்கு இங்க வச்சுக்கணும் தெரியாது இது கொஞ்சம் பாருங்க பேப்பர் ஈக்கும் அது சும்மா எடுத்து செஞ்சு பாருங்க எப்படி இப்ப இப்படித்தானே படிக்க ஒண்டிக்குமே ஸ்கூல்ல நீ அப்படித்தான் நீங்க ஸ்கூல்ல குறை சொல்ல ஏதாவது இங்க படிக்கும் போது எப்படி இருந்துச்சோ இப்ப நீங்க திரும்பி செஞ்சு பாருங்க இப்ப நான் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணப்போ நீங்க சம்டைம்ஸ் இப்படி படிச்சா டிஎஃப்டி படிக்கணுமான்னு யோசிச்சு அப்படியா இல்ல நான் ஸ்டைல் அப்படி ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ண போகல இது என்ன இவ்வளவு இழுத்துட்டு போற அப்படின்னு நினைச்சீங்களா இல்ல அந்த வே சரியா தானே இப்ப ஏண்டா சில விஷயத்த ஹார்டான விஷயத்த டிரெக்டா மெத்தட சொன்னா விளங்காது இப்ப இன்டேக் இன்ட்ரடக்ஷனோட சாப்டர் படிச்சா இன்னும் ஈஸியா அப்ப அதுக்கு தான் நான் அந்த ஸ்லைட போட்டிது ப்ரொபோஸ் சிஸ்டம் ஓகே சிஸ்டம் ஃபுல்லா ஸ்ட்ரக்சர் எனக்கு தெரியாது யூஸ் பண்ண கிடைக்கும் கோடிங்